When you shop on the dark web, you expect a few risks, scams, viruses, maybe even law enforcement watching. But what I didn't expect was the nightmare that began with a single purchase. I was looking for cutting-edge tech, but what I got was far more dangerous than I could have ever imagined. Story number 1. The shipment that knew my name. I wasn't looking for trouble that night, just scrolling through the dark web out of boredom until I saw a listing that shouldn't have existed, an item with my name on it. It was late, too late really, the kind of hour where your judgment blurs and you find yourself doing things you wouldn't in the daylight. I'd been on a dark web forum for a while, reading about other people's encounters with bizarre, unsettling and outright terrifying vendors. Most of the posts were warnings, stories of regret from those who had gone too far. I never thought I'd be one of them. Then I saw it. The listing didn't have a title, just a series of numbers and symbols, but what caught my eye was the image. It was blurry, like it had been taken on an old phone, but I could make out the item, a plain cardboard box. Below it, in bold red letters, was my full name, middle initial and all. Beneath that, my city and zip code. My heart started to race. I refreshed the page, thinking it had to be some kind of glitch or coincidence. But the listing was still there, staring back at me like it knew I'd seen it. Curiosity gnawed at me. I knew I shouldn't click. Every cautionary tale I'd read screamed at me to back out, to close my browser and forget it ever existed. But I couldn't. My fingers moved on their own, hovering over the listing until I clicked. The description was brief. This package contains what you've been looking for. Do not share this link. No price, no contact information, just a single button that said order now. I shouldn't have done it. Even as I filled in the payment details, every instinct told me to stop. But something about the listing felt personal, like it was meant for me. I justified it to myself, thinking it was some elaborate prank or a weird targeted ad experiment. I completed the transaction and immediately regretted it. The page vanished, replaced with a single message. Thank you. Your order is confirmed. The package arrived 3 days later. It was sitting on my doorstep when I got home from work. No return address, no markings, just my name and address scrawled in jagged handwriting. I stared at it for a long time before bringing it inside. I didn't open it right away. For hours I sat with it on my kitchen table, trying to convince myself that this was all a joke, that nothing inside could hurt me. When I finally worked up the courage to cut the tape, my stomach dropped. Inside was a single USB drive. There was no note, no explanation, just the drive, nestled in a bed of crumpled newspaper. I picked it up, turning it over in my hands as dread settled over me. Against my better judgment, I plugged it into my laptop. The drive contained one folder labeled with the current date. Inside were videos, dozens of them. The first one was titled simply 01. I clicked on it, my hands trembling. It was grainy, like it had been recorded on a hidden camera, but the setting was unmistakable. It was my living room. The footage showed me sitting on my couch, scrolling on my phone. I checked the timestamp. It was from 2 nights ago. I opened another video, 02. This one was from my bedroom. The camera angle was fixed on my bed, and there I was, sleeping soundly, completely unaware. Panic gripped me as I clicked through more files. They documented my every move, eating dinner, brushing my teeth, leaving for work. Someone had been watching me. I tore through my apartment, searching for hidden cameras, ripping apart furniture, checking every vent and light fixture. But I found nothing. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in my living room with every light on, clutching a kitchen knife, waiting for something, anything to happen. My phone buzzed at 3 a.m. A notification, new file uploaded. I hesitated before opening it. The video was live footage of me sitting in my living room holding the knife. My blood ran cold. I stared at the screen, then at the windows, the walls, the ceiling, anywhere a camera could be hidden. But the footage didn't show a camera. It showed me. The notification buzzed again. "We see you." I didn't wait for morning. I threw some clothes into a bag and bolted. I didn't care where I was going. I just needed to get away. As I drove through the empty streets, another notification popped up on my phone. This one was different. It wasn't from any app I recognized. "You can't run from us." I slammed on the brakes, my hands shaking so hard I could barely grip the steering wheel. A black van rolled past me, moving slowly. Too slowly. Its windows were tinted and I couldn't see inside, but I knew it was them. Whoever they were, they'd been watching me long before I clicked that link. I never went back to my apartment. I left the city entirely, changed my number, even bought a new laptop. But it didn't matter. A week later, I got another package. It was the same plain box with the same jagged handwriting. I didn't open it. That was the last time I ever trusted curiosity over my instincts. Sometimes the internet knows you better than you know yourself. Story 2. The box that kept screaming. It wasn't the price or the contents that caught my attention. It was the strange warning. Do not open the box no matter what you hear. I'd stumbled across the listing on a dark web marketplace late one night. Most of the listings were what you'd expect. Illegal substances, counterfeit IDs, weapons. But this one stood out. The photo was a plain cardboard box, taped shut with what looked like electrical tape. The description was even stranger. "This is not a toy. This is not a joke. Do not open the box under any circumstances. No refunds." It sounded ridiculous, like one of those creepypastas people write for fun, but something about it felt off. I couldn't shake the feeling that the warning was meant for someone like me, someone who couldn't resist testing the limits. I stared at the Buy Now button for what felt like hours, my cursor hovering over it. I don't know why I clicked. Maybe it was boredom, or maybe it was the twisted allure of the unknown. Whatever it was, I placed the order, paid in Bitcoin, and closed my laptop, half hoping the whole thing was a scam. The box arrived 2 days later. It was exactly as described, nondescript and unremarkable, sealed with black electrical tape. There was no return address, just my own name and shipping info scrawled in Sharpie. I put the box on my kitchen table and stared at it. It was completely silent. For a moment, I felt stupid for spending money on what was probably an empty box. Hours passed, and I tried to distract myself with other things, cleaning, watching TV, scrolling through social media, but my eyes kept drifting back to the box. What was inside, and why the strange warning? It wasn't until late that night that I heard it. At first it was faint, like the wind whistling through a crack in the window, but as I sat in bed, straining to listen, the sound grew louder. It was coming from the box. A low, desperate moan. I froze, my heart hammering in my chest. The sound was human, unmistakably so. I crept out of bed and into the kitchen, my bare feet cold against the tile. The moan had turned into a soft, rhythmic sobbing, muffled but eerily close, like someone was trapped inside. "Hello," I whispered, my voice trembling. The sobbing stopped. I backed away from the box, my mind racing. It wasn't possible. The box was too small to fit a person, and even if someone had been inside, how were they still alive after days in transit? I grabbed my phone and opened the marketplace's encrypted messaging app, finding the seller's profile. My message was frantic. "What the hell is in the box? It's making noises." Minutes later, a reply appeared. "Opening it is your choice. Keeping it is ours." I shoved the box into the garage and slammed the door. Whatever was inside, I didn't want it anywhere near me. But the noise didn't stop. By the next night, the sobbing had turned into full-blown screams. They echoed through the walls so loud I could barely think. It sounded like a dozen people, all crying out in pain, their voices overlapping in a chaotic, hellish symphony. I tried to drown it out with music, turning the volume up until the speakers shook, but it didn't help. The screams burrowed into my head, relentless and unyielding. Desperate, I sent another message to the seller. "I can't do this. Take it back." Their response was instant. "It's yours now." I didn't sleep that night. By the third night, the screams had become unbearable. My neighbors pounded on the walls, yelling for me to turn off whatever I was playing, but I couldn't explain. I couldn't tell them the truth. At 3 a.m., I snapped. I grabbed a pair of scissors and stormed into the garage, shaking with anger and fear. The box sat in the corner, vibrating slightly with each piercing scream. "I don't care anymore," I muttered, cutting through the tape with trembling hands. "I'm done." The screaming stopped the moment I broke the seal. The silence was deafening. I hesitated before opening the flaps, half expecting something to jump out at me. But when I peered inside, the box was empty. For a moment, I thought it was over. Whatever cruel trick this was, it was finally done. But that night, I heard the screams again, this time from inside my house. It wasn't coming from the garage. It was coming from the walls, the floors, the air itself. And the voices were familiar. They were mine. I stood frozen in the middle of my living room, listening as my own voice echoed around me, pleading, sobbing, begging for help. "Please," it said, a perfect replica of my own tone and cadence. "Let me out. I don't live in that house anymore." I packed up and left the next morning, leaving the box behind. But the screams followed me. Even now, in my new apartment, I hear them at night, quiet at first, then louder, more desperate. And every so often, I hear my own voice among them, crying out for something I don't understand. I still don't know where those screams were coming from, but I know they weren't from me. Not yet. Story 3. The Customer Service Agent. When you shop on the dark web, you don't expect good customer service, but you definitely don't expect them to start calling you. It started innocently enough. I'd been browsing the darker corners of the internet, searching for something unique, something the mainstream market couldn't or wouldn't offer. That's when I stumbled across a listing for a next-gen smart lock. The description claimed it was unhackable, operated by advanced biometric algorithms, and equipped with an AI that learned your habits to provide the ultimate security. The price was steep, but the promise of cutting-edge tech was too tempting. I wasn't exactly tech-savvy, but I figured a lock that could outsmart anyone trying to break in was worth it. I made the purchase and shut down my laptop, expecting the usual radio silence until the package arrived. But things didn't go as expected. The first call came 2 days later. "Hello. This is customer support for your recent purchase," a distorted voice said. The number was blocked and the connection crackled with static. I frowned, confused. "I didn't think there was support for this kind of purchase," I said cautiously. "We're here to assist you," the voice replied almost mechanically. "Please confirm your address." My stomach tightened. I hung up without answering. I chalked it up to a phishing scam and tried to forget about it. But the calls kept coming, always from a blocked number, always the same distorted voice asking invasive questions. They wanted to know about my home layout, my daily schedule, even the types of locks I currently used. By the 5th call, I was done being polite. "Stop calling me," I snapped. "I don't need help setting up a damn lock." The line went quiet for a moment. Then the voice responded, "Installation is automatic. You've already granted access." Chills ran down my spine as the line went dead. The package arrived that evening. It was smaller than I expected, just a sleek black box with no branding. Inside was the lock, modern, minimalistic, and heavier than it looked. There were no instructions, just a slip of paper with a single line. Install immediately for your safety. The phrasing felt more like a threat than advice, but I ignored the unease bubbling in my chest. I removed my old deadbolt and installed the smart lock. The process was simple enough, and within minutes the lock was in place, glowing faintly with a soft blue light. I tested it, but nothing happened. The lock didn't respond to my touch or voice commands. Frustrated, I tried the accompanying app, but it wouldn't connect to my phone. Great. I'd just spent a small fortune on a glorified paperweight. That night, I received another call. "The lock has been installed," the distorted voice said. "How do you know that?" I demanded. There was a long pause before the voice replied, "Your home is secure. For now." The line went dead again, and my hands trembled as I set the phone down. Something was very wrong. At 3 a.m., I woke to the sound of my front door unlocking itself. I sat up in bed, my heart racing. The house was silent, but I knew what I'd heard. I grabbed my phone, opened the app, and checked the lock status. It read, "Unlocked." Panic surged through me as I scrambled out of bed. I locked the door manually, double-checking that it was secure, and went back to my room. But as soon as I settled in, the lock clicked open again. I stared at the door from the top of the stairs, my pulse pounding in my ears. Desperate, I opened the app again and tried to troubleshoot the issue. That's when I saw a new message on the app interface. "We're here." I froze. My mind raced with possibilities. Was this some kind of prank? A hack? But the stakes felt too real. Footsteps echoed downstairs. I bolted to my bedroom and slammed the door shut, dragging my dresser in front of it for good measure. My hands shook as I disconnected the Wi-Fi, hoping it would disable the lock's connection. My phone buzzed. A final notification popped up, and my blood ran cold. Connection lost. Entering manually. The footsteps grew louder, closer, until they stopped just outside my bedroom door. I pressed myself against the wall, clutching a lamp as a makeshift weapon. My breath caught in my throat as the doorknob turned slowly, the mechanism clicking softly in the dead silence of the house. The door creaked open, and then nothing. I thought I could leave it all behind. The strange packages, the haunting screams, the unsettling calls. But the truth is, some doors, once opened, can never be closed. The dark web doesn't just sell items, it sells nightmares that follow you, even when you think you're safe. What would you do if this happened to you? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoy these chilling tales, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more stories like this. Stay curious, but not too curious.